Today, Republican Mike Braun supports BLM. We have a lot coming up. Welcome to Black Spring, and I want to thank everyone for joining me on this segment. I know this is a little bit unannounced, just a little bit sporadic, but there were just some things I just wanted to come in. I just felt compelled to come in and talk to you guys or present to you on this Wednesday. Hope everybody's doing well wherever you're coming from. And of course, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank the loyal patrons and you, the subscribers. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. And of course, as always, if you are looking for content creation, live streams, networking, and perhaps, a kindred spirit, check out Loyal Patrons, Derek C. Williams' Killer Whale channels, The Angel Munez Variety Show, The Definition of Anarchy, Sandy K, Chrysler Imperial H, and Little Miss Goth. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Once again, happy Wednesday to you, wherever you are. Now, of course, I entitled the opening of this as Republican Mike Braun supports BLM. So we'll be taking a look at that. And also the other topics I want to get into would be, we have, of course, Mike Braun at number one, but then, of course, we have a BLM curriculum that, of course, made its debut earlier this year. So we'll get into the BLM curriculum just a little bit on today. We'll also discuss a little bit of Rand Paul's second challenging of the data and Dr. Fauci. And if we have time, which we might even get into a little bit of the patriotic, the rhetoric, the unpatriotic rhetoric, and then if you can find patriotic rhetoric, positive rhetoric, we might get into that just a bit. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And also, if you could do the Channelytics a favor, and also you would just be supporting the channel by hitting the like button, the unlike button, or dare you hit the share button on this segment. That's all Channelytics, and it helps the channel in these technocratic times and such, such calls for change in these changing times. So, of course, we had first on the docket, we have Mike Braun. Hang on just a second. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. I'm not sure. I'm not really picking that up on my... Oh, I see it now. Thank you so much. How's it going, Chrysler Imperial H? Thank you so much for coming in. So what I will do is I'll go ahead and get into the subject in which involves Mike Braun. Now, we will be drawing on a couple of sources, of course, the TNA, the vetted source, the TNA, that is the New American, as well as we will be drawing some of this information from an interview that Mike Braun actually did with Tucker Carlson, which I think even Tucker Carlson was just trying to be, as they say, let's be clear. I think he wanted to, let me be clear what you're saying. But here again, this is where, this is why I'm bringing this particular coverage here, because I think we all need to be aware, if you're not aware, that we have a faction of misrepresentation, of course, amongst these parties. And this is also why you have the faction of people that say, these are two birds of the same feather. You have this kind of a thing. Sometimes we refer to them as rhinos. We refer to them as many things. But in this instance, I think Tucker Carlson brings up an interesting point, and I think he will make that very well going into this in this segment. And also, I will give my own analysis and my own perspective, and we'll see where we all meet on that. At least if none other than just the sharing of ideas, we'll see where we all meet on that. So with that said, when I think about the variety, or when I think about this faction of Marxism in the Republican Party, here again, you have that same type of sentiment, in which you have these elected officials that are operating outside of their oath of office. And when I say outside of the oath of office, they are not upholding their oath of office. They take an oath to the Constitution, and they do not uphold that oath. They're just doing whatever they want. So, I thought, why not? We'll go ahead and take a look at Mr. Braun. I thought, for one, that it might be important for me to go ahead and let's go ahead and take a look at his appearance on Tucker Carlson's show, and then we'll go a little bit behind the scenes and see what type of profile Mr. Braun actually has. In fact, let's keep this in mind. Mr. Braun is right now, he's fairly new to the Republican Party, and we'll see how this plays out. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much for all you do. And bonjour, Camille. Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well today. So we're going to go ahead and get into this segment. And we'll start with Mike Braun. Give me just 1 second here. I will be sharing the screen with you on this. So I'm going to try to give you this without the whole thing, but I think it's important to get the context. I think Tucker Carlson did his due diligence. I mean, in fact, I think Tucker seems to be one of the last. I think that Fox News straddles the line a lot. They're moving more center, or they've been center for a while. Maybe they've been underlying center all the time. This is what I'm bringing into question. I'm bringing into question this faction that we refer to them as Republicans, or we think of them as conservatives. But then, what are they communicating? What are they? They're satisfying their own interest or their global interest versus what their party line is. They're doing more or less of what they want to do, and that's the kind of misrepresentation that I'm referring to. Shout out to everybody in the stream. So I'm going to go ahead and share this particular interview from Tucker Carlson, and we'll see where we wind up. We'll give Tucker his point, and then, of course, I'll do a bit of my analysis and what I think, we'll take a look. We're going to take a closer look at Mike Braun after this. Thank you so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. If you could do the channel again on the housekeeping front and hit that like button, share button, or unlike button. Thanks so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn.
On last night's show, we interviewed a U.S. Senator called Mike Braun. Braun is a Republican who represents the very Republican state of Indiana. Braun ran for office 2 years ago as a conservative, but he has not governed like one. As the mob burned cities and shot police officers, Mike Braun used his power in the U.S. Senate to punish local police. Cops were the real problem, Braun decided. So he sponsored legislation to make it easier for left-wing activist groups to sue and bankrupt individual police officers. And then Mike Braun endorsed Black Lives Matter.
You support the Black Lives Matter movement?
I support that movement because it's addressing an inequity that has not been solved, from a grassroots level.
It's hard to imagine that many of Mike Braun's voters agree with any of that. Black Lives Matter has said it wants to eliminate police departments, dismantle the nuclear family, and install socialism in the United States. Even in the highly revolutionary year of 2020, those don't seem like winning positions in the state of Indiana. So we asked Mike Braun to explain how that works exactly, and it didn't go well. We're not going to play you the tape. It feels like piling on to do that. We'll just sum it up this way. At one point in the interview, Mike Braun explained that he was pushing left-wing legislation because he was afraid of being criticized by Chuck Schumer if he didn't. The whole thing went like that. It was remarkable, almost beyond belief, really. Again, we're not trying to be mean here. Cruelty is easy, too easy, especially with politicians. The closer you get to them, the easier you realize it is. And by the way, Mike Braun doesn't seem like a bad person. If you live next door to him, you'd probably like him. Braun's just weak, and he doesn't really believe in anything. He's definitely not alone in that. An awful lot of Republican office holders look very much like Mike Braun right now, probably most of them. That's a problem. In a moment like this, it is a severe and dangerous problem. Here's why. Republicans at all levels could lose this fall. If they do, there will be profound consequences for you. People who supported Donald Trump will be punished. There's absolutely no question about that. There's never been an American political party as radical and as angry as the Democrats are now. Imagine them with unlimited power, and that's what they plan to get. In their first year, Democrats will give voting rights to every illegal alien in this country, and then encourage many others to join them from abroad. At a minimum, that means more than 20 million new Democratic voters overnight. No Republican will win nationally again. We will have one-party rule. But Democrats don't plan to stop there. In Congress, they will abolish the filibuster. That means they'll be able to do whatever they want to do with just a simple majority, which they will have. They plan to pack the Senate by making the District of Columbia a state. Giving statehood to D.C. is unconstitutional, clearly, but they're not worried about that. They plan to pack the Supreme Court, too. They've said so. So what will Democrats do with all of this untrammeled power? It's pretty easy to imagine. We won't go into details right now. We don't want to wreck your night. But look around. You've got a pretty good idea of what's coming. The point is, and it could not be clearer, non-Democrats in America are in peril. We're going to need someone with power willing to come to our defense. And that's where people like Mike Braun come in. That was the point of last night's interview.
The thing with depression, you get stuck.
Sorry about that, guys.
Multiple symptoms holding you back. Even the fur balls don't make you happy. Okay.
Interview. Not to humiliate a specific senator, but to remind the Republican Party that it is our only shield. Yes, the Republican Party, flawed and infuriating though it often is, the fact remains the GOP is the only institution still open to the rest of us, to Americans who want to live as they did just 15 years ago, quietly, productively, without being harassed and harangued by self-righteous lunatics who mean them harm, and they do. If you want to be left alone to do your job and raise your family in this country, you will need a protector. That protector must be the Republican Party. There are no other options, but it must be a very different kind of Republican Party. Keep in mind, we're getting a new Republican Party no matter what happens. Even now, vultures wait just off stage to swoop in and claim the GOP for themselves once Donald Trump is gone. Former Governor Nikki Haley tops that list, but there are many others on it. The moment Trump leaves, they will attack him. They'll tell you that Republicans lost power because they were mean and intolerant, just like Donald Trump. And if you listen carefully, you can hear them say that even now. It's a lie. Republicans are failing for a much more obvious reason, a more fundamental reason. They're failing because they haven't done much that is worth doing. They haven't tried very hard to improve your life. When the crisis came, they fled. They did nothing to defend you. They did nothing to defend the country. They were paralyzed. Their so-called principles turned out to be bumper stickers they wrote 40 years ago. They had no clue what to do. So from this day forward, it's very simple. We're going to have to tell them what to do. And that will work. No matter what they may believe privately, politicians respond to organized groups of voters. They want to win above all, so they head to where the votes are. Going forward, Republican voters should demand 3 things from their candidates. And if they don't provide them, don't vote for them. Here they are. First is vigorous defense of total equality under the law. We are equal because we are citizens. Every American has precisely the same rights as every other American, period. That is the promise of America. It's why millions of people move here. For a long time, we knew that. No one questioned it. It was obvious, but it no longer is obvious, and there are many who are working in the opposite direction. Republicans must counterbalance this. They must work as hard as they can to make America fair again. Wealth, appearance, ancestry can play no role whatsoever in the eyes of the law. That means that criminals like Jeffrey Epstein must go to jail the first time they're caught molesting children. It means your children must have precisely the same chances of getting into college or getting a job as anyone else's children. It means fighting to make this a colorblind meritocracy. A colorblind meritocracy. Say it again. The alternative to that is disaster. Slavery and Jim Crow were immoral precisely because they punished people for how they were born. Any system that punishes people for how they were born is immoral always. Republicans must say that loudly. Don't get caught in pointless debates about whether or not this is a racist country. Clearly it isn't. Prove it by making it less racist.
All right. Thanks so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Thank you guys so much that are just now coming in. If you guys could please hit that like button or subscribe button, or make sure you're still subscribed. That's another part of the housekeeping that I have to do on the regular. But to Tucker's point, I do think that there is going to have to be some type of, I don't know if I want to use the word change. I don't think I'm thinking that the people that we have in government that are saying they represent Republican Party or Democrat Party, these people are misrepresenting the collective citizen. Whether that's, when I say that, I would say I'm including the constituents that vote for them. And I mean, they are also working outside of their office, their oath of office, which is the Constitution, all of the time. So the problem is that where there's one Mike Braun, there's surely there's more Mike Brauns amongst the Republicans. Okay. As you heard, he's a senator. He's only been in for 2 years. I'm citing him on that. But we're going to take a closer look at Mike Braun in just a minute. And of course, you can do this for yourself as well. You can take a look at any of these candidates if you want to see just how well they're actually upholding their own oath of office. And it's very sad. Some of these individuals, they're at a low double digits, under 20%. I mean, if you're voting if they're voting with the Democrats, if they're voting globalist, why do we have 2 parties? We're being misrepresented. They're saying one thing and they're doing another. They're voting. I'm thinking that, okay, we've got right now, I had Joe Collins on the show a few weeks ago, and you've got a new faction of people that are running for office But if the roots of these offices are tainted, or there's conflict of interest, or they're conflicted about who they serve or the oath that they took, then what would a new group of people be joining? Why would they want to join this body that we call the government or the Senate or the House? Why? Shout out to you, old head dude. Shout out to Luciano. Shout out to Garrett Reed. Shout out to Delacta Camille. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you guys so much for coming in on this. It's a very impromptu stream. I didn't exactly plan it, but there's just too many things. That's why I'm thinking I'm going to have to add Wednesdays back, to put Wednesday on the schedules. So I'll keep going, but I'm saying we have a faction of, or we have many so-called, if you want to call them progressive conservatives in the Republican Party. They are not saying that, but that's the way they're voting. That's the way they're behaving. This guy just said that's radical. He just said he supports BLM because from a grassroots perspective, they haven't, defending that they haven't had a voice, I guess, under grassroots activism. And then he also, we didn't finish that complete interview, but we'll go back to it. But he also, let me not spoil it. Let me not spoil it. I want to read a couple of comments here. Shout out to Luciano. Thank you guys so much for coming in. I appreciate you guys. Also, I will eventually commit to at least one night on the Moonlight streams, but many of them will be a little bit sporadic. So Garrett Reed, we'll start with your comments. Garrett Reed, thank you so much for coming in. Garrett Reed says there are too many rhinos, and actually Trump is not a Republican. He's more of a constitutionalist and a nationalist. I would agree. I can see that. I don't think Trump aligns himself with. I would say he's definitely more of a conservative. He has conservative values, and that he is definitely a nationalist. I would say that. And he's a minority. Whatever he represents, he's a minority. And he hasn't been in the swamp for decades like many of these Republicans and the Democrats. He hasn't been in Washington. But he's the all occasion straw man, the all occasion devil, the all occasion straw man, kind of like Nixon. Okay. But it's a fallacy. And of course, the Democrats or the left, Nixon became their all occasion straw man or devilment. And now they've done that with Trump. So I'll continue. Let's see. Garrett Reed says, I really believe it helps if we are Christians. It's easier to understand that we are all children of the Lord, brothers and sisters. Well, Garrett, I can see that. But, apparently, I think we have we've got so many, the values are just so, the values are, we've lost a lot of values. And whether people are atheist or whatever they identify with, or if they are spiritual or not, I would think that they don't really even want to fly under the banner of a flag that says we are a nation. You see people burning flags and doing all kinds of things. They just want to. I don't think they want to. They don't want to be associated with anything. They just think that they can live. They can create whatever is expedient for wherever they are. They're living in the moment. There are a lot of people don't have a core ideology. I think they don't have a core ideology. They don't have the values are just not there. You have some people, they value $1. That's all the value. That without that, who are they? So I can see where you're coming from. If we can't be united as a nation, if we can't be united under a spiritual unity, then what we've really lost. We've really lost a lot. And so let me keep going. That particular interview, I wanted you to hear the perspective that Tucker's giving on. He's saying, like, he's to me, it's almost he's calling for a reformed party, if you will, or a reform party, or I don't know how that's going to happen. I think I really don't know how he, how we would achieve that. We're just, and we've got silence amongst most of these Republicans. That's what you can see. You've got Trump speaking out as a nationalist about monuments and anti, desecration of monuments and flags. But then what have you heard? What have you heard from all, at one point, during impeachment and during some of these other trials or these other accusations, where are the Matt Gaetz? Where are the Doug Collins? Where are they? I mean, the only person that kind of stands out in my mind, and it's because Thomas Massie was the one that was railroaded on the stimulus, which, nobody wanted to go on record. Nobody wanted to go on record for the way they voted. Imagine that. So I thought Massie stood his ground, even though he was being called out, for it. And he was, how dare you uphold your oath of office? How dare you be, constitutionally conscious? How dare you? We're all going to do this. You better do this. And even Trump came after him for that. I mean, Trump has gone after him on more than one occasion. But what standards do we have if we're going to, if they're all going to just vote for global interest and vote for progressive measures, then there is no standard, there is no creed, there is no doctrine. What are they voting based on? They're voting. I mean, it seems to be an uncharted ideology that they're voting on. So I'm going to finish up with that because I want to go into the background of Mike Braun for one, specifically him. And then we can take a look at some other records as well, but specifically this one. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Shout out to Luciano, Garrett Reed, Delacta Camille, and Chrysler Imperial H. So I'm going to finish out this one, at least make sure that I'm finishing it out on the second half of it. So maybe this is just okay. So it looks like he extracted that part from it. So what we can do is I know where it is, where I actually have it. I have it somewhere else. So I'll just pull it out. Shout out to you. I just read that the top presidential security advisor withheld information of Russia placing a bounty on our soldiers in Iran. You see how deep? Do you see how the depths of we are heavily infiltrated? And I go back to this saying all the time. And this is from General Patton. We defeated the wrong enemy. And I do believe we had a swamp back then. There's plenty of people, I think, that you might think of that could be thought of as a martyr or on some level that were about to expose how badly we've been infiltrated. And I think that's some of the beginning. That's some of the beginning of infiltration. It's what Patton spoke about. JFK. Even though I think JFK was doing, I think JFK had some, with his UN arms treaty, if you're trying to get the Americans to surrender their Second Amendment and you're entangled with the UN, what does that make you? What does that make you? I mean, Obama was supposed to finish the UN arms treaty. He was slated to finish that. And I think it was delayed. He wasn't able to complete that. But but I'm thinking they're going to rev up those efforts. They're going to shore up the efforts on that pretty soon as well. So let me go back in here just a second. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Thank you guys for coming out for this 11th hour Summer of Dissent, but no less, it's still Dissent. So we're going to take a look at the New American, the vetted source, the New American, and I have that particular clip. It actually gives you the full interview. You're going to get the full interview with Tucker on that. I mean, I'm saying he's not on the Senate floor, but he's definitely going to be on the record for, at least he's going to be on mainstream television for supporting BLM. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to take you to that clip right now, give you the full interview. I'm sorry for the delays, but I think this is I think it's necessary to. I think we also have to recognize it, whether you're conservative or what you are. Yes, I've been meaning to get into Gisara, and I'm going to, but I have been a little bit delayed on it. But for months, or at least for a couple of months, I put the brakes on it just for a little bit. But we'll see what happens. I'll be bringing that up very soon. But I also want to make sure that I have the sources that I want for that. Once again, I thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So we're going to be taking you to, so this is going to give you the full interview, in which I think this is where, so yeah, this is not just the aftermath. This is not just the aftermath of that interview. This is going to be the interview, or a little bit of context for you. So let's see. Actually, that's not the one. Okay, so we'll just stop that one. All right, so here we go. This one's kind of long, so I will abbreviate it again. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So we're going to remove that one. Just make sure I have the right one here. Okay. No more delays.
And Joe Biden is too. It's more popular than America's religious institutions, all of them. It's more popular than the media, the Congress, and big business. Black Matters is more popular by double digits than both the Democratic and the Republican parties. It's almost as popular as the U.S. military. It's much more popular than the Pope. The numbers are astounding, but the polls are not the only measure of it. Here's a Black Lives Matter rally from over the weekend in New York.
Shout out to
Look
you.
at that picture.
Definition
That is
of
an
anarchy.
ocean of people. Ask yourself the last time you saw a candidate for office who was able to draw a crowd like that. The media, in their relentlessly fawning coverage, usually describe Black Lives Matter as an activist group or a protest movement. But that's deception by understatement. Black Lives Matter is not a collection of marchers with signs. It's not a conventional political lobby like Planned Parenthood or the NRA. It's not pressuring Congress to pass some narrow new set of laws. Black Lives Matter is far more ambitious than that. It is working to remake the country and then to control it. It's a political party. As of tonight, Black Lives Matter may be the single most powerful political party in the United States. Nobody says that out loud, but politicians understand it perfectly well. If nothing else, they understand power. They can smell it at great distances. And that's why they're lining up to bow before Black Lives Matter.
You can't really reform a department that is rotten to the root.
We've heard our people cry out, "I can't breathe." We've heard our people speak out, "Black Lives Matter."
Okay. Our people, I'm sorry, that just kind of caught me on a pause. Our people. I just, all right, I'll get back.
This is a systemic problem that requires a comprehensive solution.
And what I would say is that there's a legitimacy to this anger. There's a legitimacy to this outrage.
None of what you just saw is a stretch for Democrats. They believe their long-term goals align with those of Black Lives Matter. And in fact, at times, the group functions as an arm of the Democratic Party. More telling, though, and more ominous is the response from many Republicans. They've been happy to go along as well, or in Mitt Romney's case, even mouth the same slogans.
A way to end violence and brutality and to make sure that people understand that Black Lives Matter.
That was the former Republican nominee for president. Let that sink in. If there was ever an indicator of how powerful Black Lives Matter has become, you just saw it. Republican leaders brag about their strong conservative convictions, but mostly they just want to be on the winning team, whatever that is. That's why they pause before offending China. It's why when Black Lives Matter tells them to take a knee, they do. It's all pretty strange when you think about it. If the leaders of Black Lives Matter are political actors, and they are, then by definition, you are allowed to have any opinion you want to have about them. Black Lives Matter wants to run the country. Therefore, you can freely criticize Black Lives Matter. Those are the rules of our system, but not anymore. Imagine a world where you are punished for questioning the behavior of the president or for insulting your local mayor. You probably can't imagine that. It's too bizarre. It's un-American. But that's where we are right now. Black Lives Matter has changed the rules. And here's their first new rule: no criticizing Black Lives Matter. You can be fired from your job if you disobey. Many Americans have been. On Friday, for example, the principal of a public school in Windsor, Vermont, was dismissed from her job for posting the following words on her personal Facebook page, quote, "While I understand the urgency to feel compelled to advocate for Black lives, what about our fellow law enforcement? Just because I don't walk around with a BLM sign should not mean I'm a racist," end quote. Unfortunately, the principal's boss disagreed. The superintendent of Windsor Schools described the quote you just heard as, quote, "outright racist." Windsor, Vermont, by the way, is more than 97% white. Also on Friday, an economist called Harold Uhlig lost his job at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago for daring to offer even milder criticism than that. On Twitter, Uhlig noted that Black Lives Matter had, quote, just torpedoed itself with its full-fledged support of hashtag defund the police. Now is the time, Uhlig noted, quote, for sensible adults to enter back into the room and have serious, earnest, respectful conversations about it all. That was a racist statement, the Federal Reserve concluded, so they fired Harold Uhlig. We could give you many other examples of the same thing happening. There are a lot of them. Black Lives Matter now enjoys almost complete immunity from criticism. This is unprecedented for an American political movement. But Black Lives Matter is even more powerful than that. It has single-handedly revised our moral framework. Yes, Black lives do matter. That is a statement of fact, and no decent person doubts that it is true, because it is.
All right, shout out to everybody that's in this stream. So yes, this is not quite, I'm not sure what happened with this clip, but it's a bit off. But without further ado, I'll go ahead and take us into what I wanted to do with this. So I wanted to give you the context of the interview that Tucker actually did with Mike Braun. So without that, I'll just go ahead. Let's go ahead. We can take a look at, just for kicks, we'll take a look at Mike Braun's actual record. And I think you'll see that, I think as Tucker was so eloquently saying, of course, they're saying all these conservative things, all these, general things, and then look what they do. So we'll just take a look at Mike Braun just for a second, because he's only served since 2019, so he's still fairly new. But I think this is the new wave, or this is more of the neo-Republican, or whatever, however you want to shade that. But I'm going to go ahead and share with you this actual index here, so you can see the way he's voted so far. And if you want to look up anyone else, you'll be able to do that as well. Shout out to Old Head Deuce. Yes, the world is watching. BLM obviously is here, whether we like it or not. The narrative has been snatched. BLM political party, Panthers political party. We'll see. We're going to take a look at we're going to look at some items, another component of BLM on this show today as well. So shout out to everybody in the stream. Thank you guys for tuning in. And I'm going to pull that up on the screen for you right now. Thank you guys so much for coming in. This is going to be a bit slightly informational. Super informational, some might say, but I'm just going to pull this up for you. So we've looked at some other politicians previously. So what you should be seeing on the screen right now, what you see on the screen right now is a profile of Mike Braun. And in the profile, you're going to see, I think there's about about 4 bills that I guess we'll call it the bill watch here on Black Spring. And you'll see. So here we are. We have Mike Braun. He's a senator from Indiana. He's on the Republican, and his score is at 78%. Okay, so I'm not sure where you attended school, or out of 100%, 70% in most places, 78% is passing. But is that the best? Is that the best he can do? I guess. So here you are. You can just see on a few things the way he's voted. He's voted. Of course, they assign pluses and minuses based on the constitutional, the amendments, as well as, of course, there's things like fiscal responsibility. There's, of course, a smaller government, the fewer on the foreign entanglements, and, just a couple of other things. But for starters, of course, you've got a lot of spending that comes, Many of these spending bills, they're just spending ad infinitum, renewing spending ad infinitum. So this was the last one here, was September 26th, and in which I assume he voted aye on the measure, spending cuts, Continuing Appropriations Act, short-term appropriations, because of course we're a debtor's nation. So to have the spending in perpetuity that we have that's not sustainable. You might think, well, most people realize you can't just spend, and not to mention the amount of spending that has gone on due to the federal spending that's gone on at the federal level because of the coronavirus. So here we'll look at a couple more of these. Of course, you guys can do this at your leisure. I'll be happy to provide that for you. Of course, I provide that in many of the videos that I do. So you can look up whomever you want, whenever you want. All right, so you have the short-term appropriations bill, budget deals. He's got a lot of votes, a lot of things that he's voted within that range. But then there's some other things. Of course, he has a no vote on the Defense Authorization Act. So you can see that according to this, that he's voted fairly. He's voted a little bit above average when it comes to, I guess, many of these fiscal responsibility, these fiscal measures, or the natural disasters and the things that, federal government getting involved into many of these things are where I think he takes the most hit from, because I think that the states are ultimately more, it was originally written for the states to deal with some of these disaster kinds of things. Everybody, when you think back about FEMA and Hurricane Katrina, well, the federal government pretty much handled that pretty poorly. So you get that. If there's a litmus test for you, just think about FEMA and Hurricane Katrina. When the federal government gets involved, that's your response. So that's Braun's record looks, believe it or not, that's a high record compared to some of his colleagues in the same party and across the aisle. So it's not impressive by any stretch. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is impressive at all, but you know, I think we've tolerated a big portion of what's going on, and we've just accepted it, or we're not paying attention, or we're not being active. We haven't been active. We have been informed. We haven't been active, and this is what you get. And unfortunately, right now, of course, there are a lot of people drumming up to run for a lot of progressives are running under the Democrat flag. So there's a lot of issues going on. A lot of the spectrum is getting broader and broader, and I don't know how anyone's going to identify in the minority. Nobody wants to be a minority, apparently. It's not politically expedient to be constitutionally conscious. Shout out to the people in the stream. Shout out to the people in the stream. And the thing about it is, you would think, okay, if all members of Congress take the constitutional oath, then why is there such division? If they're taking the oath and they're voting against it, how are they still in office, whether you're Republican or a Democrat? If you take the same oath of office, why is there so much division? Why is there so much inconsistency? How did we get here? Shout out to Console Fix. Thank you. Good afternoon to you. Shout out to Old Head Deuce. Okay, so let's see. So generally, there you go. That's what you're working with. I'm not sure where you guys are coming from, but check out the profiles on the people that are on the ticket wherever you are. I mean, it's not November, but it is more than around the corner at this point. I just don't know. I don't really know how much more authentic are you going to be able to get with people, just with who's, with what's going on, with the amount of infiltration and deception that we're dealing with. So if we have a Congress that's ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater, then who do they represent? How do they articulate their values? I mean, how can they support the president if he's not in line with that? It's just it's just getting to be disconcerting. I mean, it's as some people have said, it looks like a loss. It looks like a loss. I don't know if it looks like a loss or feels like a loss. I don't know. I'm just saying. So just for kicks, for people in the audience or people who are viewing this, what do you guys think? Are you guys thinking that there should be, that we should demand change amongst that party that's referred to as the Republicans? Or do you guys think that there should be a new party? I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think should happen? I mean, it's kind of rhetorical, but then of course, if you give a response, then of course I'll put it up on the screen for you as always. So shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Shout out to Console Fix, Old Head Deuce, Definition of Anarchy, Garrett Reed, Luciano, Delacta Camille, Chrysler Imperial H, and of course, I'll take a moment to thank the loyal subscribers. Thank you guys for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And as always, if you could make sure you hit the like button or make sure you're still subscribed to the channel, that would be important too. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to take a moment to shout out the loyal patrons: Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, the Angel Munez Variety Show, Definition of Anarchy, Sandy K, Chrysler Imperial H, and Little Miss Goth. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this segment. And console fixes, that's a complex question. I know it's fully loaded. I know, but it's yeah, I I can't, what can I say? I mean, I have a side-eye list. I have a list of rhinos. And I'm gonna tell you, this is what I see. From what I can see, the biggest rhinos are closest, they stay closest to Trump. Like I'm just going back, just giving examples from the impeachment hearings and the inquiries. What did you have? The Doug Collinses, the Matt Gaetz, and Lindsey Graham. My gosh, Lindsey Graham, just those three, and then this guy Braun. So there's more of them. There's more. They just haven't taken. They haven't moved forward, or they haven't, I'm not sure how they played it, what games, what rules they play by, but they haven't taken their place on the stage or whatever. But I do think that there's some people, they are sticking close to Trump because they are not only they're monitoring, of course, everything he does. They know what moves he's making, and of course, if they're undermining him, that's exactly what they need to do. That's exactly what they need to do. You have all these cheerleaders and everything. I tell you, it's the biggest, it's the most bizarre. It's the most bizarre thing. I mean, even when I go back to, I've talked about the constitutional scholar from back during the impeachment inquiry or hearings. That went on forever, it seemed. And you had Jonathan Turley basically you cannot tell anything about, you cannot hang your hat or put your suitcase down on any of this. But he brought the most logic and the most reason to that hearing, when the rest of them, the founders intended, and it's just to pump the three scholars. Okay. And Turley didn't even, he said flat out, straight up, I didn't vote for Trump. I supported Obama, but I'm telling you, this impeachment case that you guys are building is paper thin, and you don't have what you need. You talk about abuse of power, where you're doing the abuse of power. You're mad. I get that you're mad. And he's even fact-checked Obama a couple of months ago on the precedents of the Flynn case. So I'm just thinking, all of these people are chameleons. What does it mean? What does it mean to be, what does it mean to interpret the law? What does it mean to be to represent? To say you're a constitutional scholar? I mean, what does any of this stuff mean? Lawmaking is supposed to be more simple than it is, but these people have convoluted and conflated so much that nobody knows, nobody is sure about anything. So shout out to everybody in the stream. Sorry to take you guys down memory lane so much, but I think it's necessary. It's necessary to see the way these universities operate, and you can tell, I mean, for one, I think about it all the time. I'm just thinking, well, could I, I've been to college. I mean, could I go back to college amongst this environment? I mean, I think I avoided a lot of these things when I was in college, but I think now that, that's as an adjunct professor, they had students that were that their extracurricular activity was nonstop social justice. I could see that. They can't concentrate on anything. They can't do anything. They can't do my assignments because they're out. They're planning a protest or yeah, it's, I mean, I'm just thinking that's not even that long ago. It's not even that long ago. But it's certainly, it's most notable, and it has spread all over. It's all over the world. You know, they're writing the rules. They're writing the books. They're training the teachers. Everything you got. You know, for decades, you know, we've looked to these Ivy League schools, and look what they've turned out. You got a bunch of Marxists in the streets right now. In fact, this weekend, I mean, I'm even seeing, you know, you're starting to get alerts, and, you know, let's see. Shout out to you, the rapper 10,000. I'm going to read some comments now. I don't mean to get into a rant, but I think that, you know, if you go onto these college campuses, if you see the amount of flyers, and if you see even in the theater, you know, there's a lot, you know, radicals, you know, they play out. You know, they might show up at a rally in the Handmaid's Tales costume and burn the flag. That's what the abortionists, or the pro-abortionists, you know, they burn the flag in their Handmaid's Tale outfit. You know, that's effective, right? Because they added some, they gave you some visual, they gave you some impact. You know, they gave you some drama for effect to make it more effective, to make their stance more effective. So, but I'm saying all of this Marxism, it's infiltrating the arts, it's the whole interdisciplinary, it's across the board. I mean, I'm hearing, Secretary Pompeo was up talking about Hong Kong. And it's very sad what's happening in Hong Kong, but I'm just thinking that, you know, what are we doing on the domestic side right now? Of course, I support Hong Kong. I went to Hong Kong less than 2 years ago, and it's a totally different situation right now. Yeah, it's totally different. And who knows? To go back there, what it would be like, I don't know. But let's deal with the domestic terrorism. Like, how are we going to... Of course, you know, the July 4th celebration is under criticism, and I'm not going to get into that. I don't think I'm going to get into that on this segment. But shout out to Old Head Deuce. I'm going to read some comments now, and I'll move on. Sorry, guys. I'm getting... we're going to take a look at the Black Lives Matter. I don't know. Have they made it to your school yet? We're going to talk about Black Lives Matter, the curriculum that they introduced earlier this year. And yeah, they released it in January of 2020. So we'll take a look at that. I'm not sure how long I'm not sure if that's a year-long thing, but also I anticipate that there will be the climate change. When are they going to bring climate change back into this? You know, they're going to be rolling that out for your kids as well. So let me continue here. Old Head Dude says China took Hong Kong, saying U.S. law does not apply there. Shout out to you. All right. So Console Fix says the country is experiencing extremely high levels of partisanship. I think the leaders and members of the parties have high levels of antagonism towards the members of the opposite parties. And Old Head Dude says law is over. Do what you want without offending anyone. Shout out to everybody in the stream. If you're coming by with the window down or something, or letting the window down and you're just honking the horn. You know, every now and then I'll give you guys something that sounds a little folksy or whatever. I don't know, but it's just, you know, I don't know. I grew up in a small town, and yeah, a small town, and you know, people do things like that. You know, they might drive past a place or something, nostalgia. Oh, so and so, that's the place. And they might honk the horn, even if they're not even sure if somebody's home, or, you know, they do these kinds of things. But anyway. All right. So Old Head says the vote is just a survey. Shout out to you, Old Head Deuce. Thank you so much. The Rapper 10,000 says, Oh yes, I'm planning to do I would like to do a video on, there was just so much. That was a slaughter, the rapper 10,000. For those of you that are not quite sure what I'm talking about, there was Candace Owens did a interview with Mark Lamont Hill, and it was a debate and his comments on denying. Let's see, this is the rapper 10,000 Mark Hill debate on his comments on denying that black only spaces are segregation or how racist HBCUs are. That's so loaded. You know what I mean? Most people have no idea. You'd be amazed at how many people don't have any idea what an HBCU is. I mean, acronym and all. They don't know what that is. You know, they don't. HBCU, you know, they have no concept as to what that is. And you know, they're going backwards. I mean, what was it? This is Candace's phrase. You know, they're so progressive that they're regressive. And what if you're not going back to segregation, if you're not having safe spaces and dormitories for just this type of black students, or what are you doing if that's not segregation? Shout out to you, the rapper 10,000. He says we need to revolt on July 4th. And Old Head Deuce says, okay, I'll read your comment there. But yes, that was a fully loaded, I'm going to be honest, Mark Lamont Hill, that was very poor representation. Very poor. Come on, Reed, Unstoppable. Shout out to you. Is it Canada Day? Happy Canada Day to you guys. Are you guys still celebrating your nationality over there? Well, that's nice to see. I have a former teacher of mine. Yeah, and you know, she usually celebrates that as well. But very cool. How are you? Thank you so much for coming in. I hope you guys are doing well as always. So let me keep going here. The rapper says, the bottom line here is that the American people need to revolt on July 4th and fight against BLM and Antifa. Take out all of them. Shout out to the rapper 10,000 at Old Head Deuce. No defense position here. We need to fight back hard. Excellent, Kimon Reed, Unstoppable. That's great. Hope you have a great time. Well, you know, I'm going to be honest, Kimon. I think there's just such the cloud. There's such a dark cloud around here that I don't know. It does not, what we're experiencing, and it doesn't feel like it doesn't really feel that American right now. Our streets don't feel that, you know, our liberty is, you know, it's on the line. And I don't know how many you can celebrate. Of course, it's a great thing to do, but there's just like, even, I just, you know, I don't know who all celebrating, what you guys are doing for your celebrations this weekend, but there's a lot of people that are not proud of America. They're not proud to be American. I mean, and I can even go back to 9/11. I think we saw that. And a lot of times you would see the flags being posted, you know, outside of people's homes, or you would recognize those homes that are not. Like, you might have a college professor say, what are you doing with that? Those are the people that think that, you know, we're a sinful nation and that we need to change, or that we need to do this, or we need to do that. They're not going to be pulling out, you know, depending on your state that you're in. I mean, you'll find patriotism somewhere, but it's a dark time here. I don't know. That's here again. I'll go back to this. I'll say, when Joe Biden says this is, you know, right now we're battling for the soul of America, he's got that right. And right now the soul is fighting a pandemic. We're fighting, what do you want to call them? Agitators, protesters, demonstrators, whatever they want to call them. in the streets right now. In fact, I received something saying, basically warning that, certain people, if you're flying a flag, your flag might get torched this weekend or this week. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Trudeau is doing better in Canada than we are. I don't know. Maybe he's handling, the public safety of our cities, to me, is unstable. And I do think people will be soft targets. They will be soft targets this weekend. So, I mean, but don't mean to be a Debbie Downer and rain on your parade. I think it's great, and you guys are having a great time celebrating your nationalism. And there's nothing wrong with nationalistic. Let us know how it goes. I mean, I'd be curious. I don't know what faction of BLM is in your country right now, but hopefully they don't spoil it for you. Console Fix says maybe we need a third-party candidate. That's interesting, Console Fix. It's very interesting. Yeah, Trudeau, I'm not a fan of Trudeau. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan of Trudeau or the NATO. There's a lot of that. Emmanuel Macron, he's of the same faction as Trudeau, the UN, NATO, all of these organizations, the state heads are very weak. They are very weak. In fact, they might as well add Jacob Fry from Minnesota. He could be one of their heads of states. It's disgusting. So Ross Perot, the billionaire from Texas who recently died, is a good example of a third-party candidate who impacted an election. Let's see. Are people protesting the PM for wearing blackface? I appreciate that, Kimon Reed, Unstoppable. Yes, we definitely need to be encouraged, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard. But I'm surprised they're not coming. I anticipate they're going to come after the flag. So do you see what I'm saying? This is all this stuff, all the things that are going on right now are so antithetical to America. You know what I mean? We've witnessed people burn flags already. So people but see, to me, some of the people that have the most egregious comments or the snarkiest things to say about this country, they'll end up celebrating it too. So I'm like, okay, you're just a walking contradiction. You can't have it both ways. I think that's even from the youngest of ages, kids learn about July 4th. They might not call it Independence Day until they get older, a little bit older, but so shout out to you. Yeah, it bothers me too. Let me read that comment. This is from the rapper 10,000. He said, it bothers me that Democrats and the media uses Black Americans for their political agenda, foot soldiers to take out the country, and BLM is a political arm of the left. I can see that. It is what it is. It's not what it's not. They are not protesters. They are not, they are trained agitators. Maybe they're trained Marxists. Maybe they're foot soldiers that are in the streets. Maybe they are, and the universities have trained them as well. They've trained them to really hate America. Let's see, Console Fix says 4th of July Antifa is going to be at Gettysburg. It's going to be at Gettysburg and burning American flags, and kids will be there. When did the gay flag become more protected than the USA flag? Ooh, wow, that burns. No point intended. You're right. I mean, there was a whole argument and debate on how far the LGBTQ flag should be, how far it should go. Should it go to the top of the staff? I mean, I'm just thinking that that's the aim. So in the workplace in Canada and getting in for black rights. First parties were the Federalists. First parties were the Federalists and Jeffersonian Republicans. The Federalists disappeared, and the Republicans eventually evolved into the current Democratic Party. Well, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I would just encourage everyone to be vigilant and to, I guess I would say, stay locked and loaded, as my friend would say. I'm not the originator of that. But I do think it's necessary. So let me move on here. And I don't mean to douse or, to douse anybody's weekend, but I think the American morale is down. And I'm speaking for myself, but I do think that I've heard it from some other people as well. So we'll see where we wind up. But here's my gut. I do not trust this country with socialism. I do not. No. So I'm going to keep going here. Let's just take a quick look here. Now I'm going to move forward a little bit with this. This next particular story is Rand Paul. Okay, Rand Paul challenged Fauci earlier this year on his reports and the data. So it looks like he's doing it again. And I think it's kind of like a follow-up, an update. It looks like he's doing it again because, I mean, Fauci, you can see him at times when the camera's not on, he's not wearing his mask. Okay. So as soon as the camera comes on, he's pulling his mask up. I mean, it's just, lunacy. Shout out to Cold War Jesus. I'm American. This means I'm standing up for my country and my community every day because it's in my DNA until the end. Shout out to you, Cold War Jesus. I mean, power to you, but I mean, I'm thinking, it's just, we need who's going to speak for the people? I can't say that I can see that. And Mad Max, of course, she's up to no good. Needs to be arrested because she is threatening people. I think that's what she does best. But nothing happens to them. You notice? They can do everything all out except for what else? How much more can they do? Now, I haven't seen her doing that. But I'm sure she's doing it. I think I saw something, but I just saw like a video, the button on it, but I didn't hit it. So, but let me just give you a little bit of this next clip. This one is with Rand Paul basically saying, okay, what have you got? What have you got for us on kids returning back to school this fall? And please don't give us anything. I am so done with this gray, conflicted, convoluted data. What in data, you have many components, right? And that includes recovery, right? Where are the recovery numbers? People that were quarantined, that positive versus negatives versus positives, negatives, recoveries. Where are they? You got data. Okay, but what, and then who's your scientist? At this point, who is the scientist? You get Birx and you get Fauci. A lot of people have come out against Fauci, and he's still top technocrat. So without further ado, guys, I'll go on here. Hope everybody's doing well on this Wednesday. All right, so this is coming from Breitbart. Just give you a little bit of this. This is Rand Paul that's basically saying, look, what have you got for us?
Senator Paul. Thank you. Fatal conceit is the concept
that central planning with decision-making concentrated in a few hands can never fully grasp the millions of complex individual interactions occurring simultaneously in the marketplace. It is a fatal conceit to believe any one person or small group of people has the knowledge necessary to direct an economy or dictate public health behavior. I think government health experts during this pandemic need to show caution in their prognostications. It's important to realize that if society meekly submits to an expert and that expert is wrong, a great deal of harm may occur when we allow one man's policy or one group of small men and women to be foisted on an entire nation. Take, for example, government experts who continue to call for schools and daycare to stay closed, or that recommend restrictions that make it impossible for a school to function. For a time, there may not have been enough information about coronavirus in children, but now there is. There are examples from all across the United States and the world that show that young children rarely spread the virus. Let's start in Europe. 22 countries have reopened their schools and have seen no discernible increases in cases. These graphs behind me show no surge when schools open. The red line is where the schools opened. There is data from Austria, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Netherlands. No spike when schools are opened. Contact tracing studies in China, Iceland, Britain, and the Netherlands failed to find a single case of child to adult infection. Here at home, childcare for essential workers continued to be available in some states throughout the pandemic. Braun University researchers collected data on daycares that remained open during the pandemic. Over 25,000 kids in their study found that only 0.16% got COVID. And when you looked at the confirmed cases for staff, there was about 1% of more than 9,000 staff. The YMCA also has put forward statistics. 40,000 kids at 1,100 sites. There were no reports of coronavirus outbreaks or clusters. Dr. Joshua Sharfstein of Johns Hopkins writes, there is converging evidence that the coronavirus doesn't transmit among children like the flu, that it is a lower risk. Just yesterday, the American Academy of Pediatrics says we got to get kids back in school. We want them physically present in school. They even cite mounting evidence that children are less likely to contract the virus. Ultimately, this all comes down to the fatal conceit that central planners have enough knowledge somehow to tell a nation of 330 million people what they can and can't do. Perhaps our planners might think twice before they weigh in on every subject. Perhaps our government experts might hold their tongue before expressing the opinion whether we can play NFL football or Major League Baseball. Not in October. Perhaps our experts might think twice before telling the whole world that a COVID vaccine likely won't provide herd immunity. We don't know. Why weigh in with these opinions that we have no knowledge of? These are forecasts that may well be wrong. Perhaps our experts might consider the undue fear they are instilling in teachers who are now afraid to go back to work. No one knows the answers to these questions. We shouldn't presume that a group of experts somehow knows what's best for everyone. Hayek had it right. Only decentralized power and decision-making based on millions of individualized situations can arrive at what risks and behaviors each individual should choose. That's what America was founded on. Not a herd with a couple of people in Washington all telling us what to do and we like sheep blindly follow. This all begs the question, when are we going to tell the people the truth? That it's okay to take their kids back to school? Dr. Fauci, every day, virtually every day, we seem to hear from you things we can't do. But when you're asked, can we go back to school? I don't hear much certitude at all. I hear, well, maybe it depends. All of this body of evidence about schools around the world shows there's no surge. All of the evidence shows that it's rare. I mean, we've so politicized this and made it politically correct that the WHO releases that it's rare, and you have a scientist up there honestly giving her opinion. What happens to her? She's blackballed, and her report that she refers to is taken off the website.
When you go to that scientist speech and you try to clink on the lick, the WHO has now screened it from us because it said something that's not politically correct. That, guess what? It's rare for kids to transmit this. But I hear nothing of that coming from you. All I hear, Dr. Fauci, is we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't play baseball. Well, even that's not based on the science. I mean, flu season peaks in February. We don't know that COVID's going to be like the flu season. It might, but we don't know that. But we wouldn't ban school in October. You might close some schools when they get the flu. We need to not be so presumptuous that we know everything. But my question to you is, can't you give us a little bit more on schools that we can get back to school, that there's a great deal of evidence and it's actually good evidence that kids aren't transmitting this. It's rare and the kids are staying healthy and that, yes, we can open our schools.
Mr. Chairman, do I have a little bit of time to?
Well, I give you a little. That was
answer
well
that.
over 5 minutes, but we'll.
Thank you,
Go
Senator
ahead and
Paul.
please answer the question.
Yeah, so very quickly, Senator Paul, I agree with a lot of what you say about, this idea about people having to put their opinions out without data. And sometimes you have to make extrapolations because you're in a position where you need to at least give some sort of recommendation. But if you were listening, and I think you were, to my opening statement and my response to one of the questions, I feel very strongly we need to do whatever we can to get the children back to school. So I think we are in lock agreement with that. The other thing that I'd like to clarify very briefly is that when things get in the press of what I supposedly said, I didn't say. I never said we can't play a certain sport. What happens is that people in the sport industry, they could either be people from Players Association, owners, people involved in the health of the players, ask me opinions regarding certain facts about the spread of the virus, what the dynamics are. I give it, and then it gets interpreted that I'm saying you can't play this sport or you can't play that sport. I agree with you. I am completely unqualified to tell you whether you can play a sport or not. The only thing that I can do is, to the best of my ability, give you the facts and the evidence associated with I know about this outbreak. Thank you.
Thank you. We just need
Paul.
more optimism. There
Thank you,
is
Senator
good
Paul.
news out
Now
there.
go
We're
to
not
Senator
kidding it.
Casey.
All right, guys. So there you are. There you are hearing. You're hearing assertions from Rand Paul, who's actually Dr. Rand Paul. I don't think most people know that. So I think the first time he challenged Fauci was, I think it was more than effective. And I think he probably hurt Fauci's feelings, the first time. But this time, it's basically the same thing. You don't come with any optimism. You don't. And then he wants to do, well, the press said I said this and I didn't say that. But I'm just thinking, well, you guys come across each other's paths, right? It's just, you would think that you would think that the medical community would have a dialogue, especially if you have doctors amongst the Congress, that they would have some type of idea of where we stand, some clarity on it. And I can see that, and I respect Dr. Rand Paul for taking it to him a second time. But I don't think Fauci's going to change. I don't think Fauci, what he's delivering, is going to change. He's going to keep saying data, 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 science, 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 data, 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 science, science, science. He's going to keep saying that because I believe that's what he's being told to say. I think that, a lot of these doctors and these medical professionals have gone against everything that they've been taught during this pandemic. They've gone against everything they've been taught. We have quarantined the healthy and the sick. So you see what I'm saying? The topsy-turvy continues. And I think he's being told what to do. And of course, it doesn't help, that it's an election season. So, anything that they can do, I think I do subscribe to that. I do believe that there is controlled opposition here. I'm not even going to go into the New York and the bookends, New York and California. I'm not even going to go into that. A shout out to Cold War Jesus as the one data point that is very troubling is new cases. They need to break it up by actual new cases and by newly discovered existing cases. Big problem in understanding what's really happening. I hear you. I mean, but I don't think that that the intent is to to bring any actual clarity. The more confused and the more gray things are, then people will stay in the fear factor will remain there. Some people still haven't been out of their homes. Still haven't. And so with that said, just really quickly, I did say that I was going to take a look at I did tell you about the Black Lives Matter. I said, hey, has the BLM curriculum made it to your school? I don't know whether your guys' kids go to public schools or whether they attend school, but looks like they introduced this curriculum at the beginning of this year, January 2020. So never let a good crisis go to waste, right? So with that said, I'm going to take you over to, there's a lot of, I've looked at this curriculum just roughly, but there's affirmations there. So I thought it was, the affirmations tell quite a bit. So we'll take a look at those. Hope everybody's doing well. Thank you guys for joining me on this segment of Black Spring Winds Autumn. Shout out to the rapper 10,000. Shout out to Cold War Jesus. Shout out to Kimone Reed Unstoppable. Shout out to Console Fix. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much for all that you do. Shout out to the Definition of Anarchy. Shout out to Garrett Reed. Shout out to Luciano. Shout out to Old Head Deuce, Dimlacta Camille, and I think that's pretty much covering it. So we're going to take a quick look here at this curriculum. And yes, I will probably, it's possible that I will do a stream like really late this evening, but I will try to post that and not be so sporadic with that. But of course, there's some videos that are going to be coming out as well. So, and the poll is going to come out. So let's go really quickly over to, just want to look a little bit closer at this the whole Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's interesting to see what's going on. I'm not sharing the wrong thing here. Okay, so that's not the right one. But this is actually a document. Hope everybody's doing well in the stream. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, since that's for whatever reason, that's not really coming out. Let's see what this is. Okay, so here it is. Here we are. All right, so for your purposes, I'm going to zoom in a bit here. I'm going to try to anyway. Okay, so this comes from the curriculum. We affirm that all Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is an ideological and political intervention in a world where Black lives are systematically and intentionally targeted for demise. It is an affirmation of Black folks' contributions to this society, our humanity, and our resilience in the face of deadly oppression. Diversity. We are committed to acknowledging, respecting, and celebrating differences and commonalities. Restorative justice. We are committed to collectively, lovingly, courageously, working vigorously for freedom and justice for Black people and, by extension, all people. As we forge our path, we intentionally build and nurture a beloved community that is bonded together through a beautiful struggle that is restorative, not depleting. Unapologetically Black. We are unapologetically Black in our positioning. In affirming that Black Lives Matter, we need not qualify our position. To love and desire freedom and justice for ourselves is a necessary prerequisite for wanting the same for others. Globalism. We see ourselves as part of the global Black family, and we are aware of the different ways we are impacted or privileged as Black folks who exist in different parts of the world. collective value. We are guided by the fact all Black lives, regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity, gender expression, economic status, ability, disability, religious beliefs or disbeliefs, immigration status, or location. Transgender affirming. We are committed to embracing and making space for trans brothers and sisters to participate and lead. We are committed to being self-reflexive and doing the work required to dismantle cisgender privilege and uplift Black trans folk, especially Black trans women who continue to be disproportionately impacted by trans antagonistic violence. Man, a word salad for me. Black women, we are committed to building a Black woman affirming space free from sexism, misogyny, and male-centeredness. Whew. Black villages, we are committed to disrupting the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and quote villages, end quote, that collectively care for one another, and especially quote our, end quote, children to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. Empathy. We are committed to practicing empathy. We engage comrades. You guys see any problem with this language? We engage comrades. We engage comrades with the intent to learn about and connect with their context. Black families, we are committed to making our spaces family friendly, enable parents to fully participate with their children. We are committed to dismantling the patriarchal practice that requires mothers to work, quote, double shifts, end quote, that require them to mother in private, even as they participate in justice work. All right, almost to the end. Hang in there with me. Queer affirming. We are committed to fostering a queer affirming network. When we gather, we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking, or rather the belief that all in the world are heterosexual unless he or she or they disclose otherwise. Intergenerational. We are committed to fostering an intergenerational and communal network free from ageism. We believe that all people, regardless of age, shows up with the capacity to lead and learn. And finally, loving engagement. We are committed to embodying, practicing justice, liberation, and peace in our engagements with one another. I don't know if you guys are still hanging on with me, hanging in there for that. But whoa, that's an affirmation. That's your affirmation. I mean, I don't see it. Does not. They are covering a lot of. They're basically fighting against the social constructs under the name of Black Lives Matter. It's social constructs. They want to deconstruct all the social constructs. And there's an ism on everything: ageism, sexism, misogynism, ism. It's just a bunch of made up words. Bunch of made up words to say we don't like what's established here. And that's full out an expansion of Karl Marx. Communism. And you see the flowery and generalization lovingly, and just it's just it becomes bait and switch. That's a bait and switch. Oh, well, that's not what we really, that's not really that's not really somebody burning your house down. That's a protester. I mean, now that's a document that you would find, that you might find somewhere else. You wouldn't think you would find a document like that representing an organization in the United States. If you just look at that. The Radper 10,000 says allies is code word for a black lesbian. Comrades? The word comrades is in that document. So this is what you're dealing with. I mean, do you really need to see anything else? I mean, I just look at the wording, it's transgender affirming. You need affirmations for transgenders, right? Queer affirming. I mean, these people would never, or maybe it's, I don't think there's any negotiation on this. It's just full of ideologies. They're asking for tolerance by demanding intolerance, right? Is that what we're doing? And of course, what it's got, the capitalists, they think they're going to be profitable. It's just a farce to me. But it's certainly not. It's certainly a threat. I think it's, you're going to be cis people are people that are. Don't ask me why I know about this lexicon, but there's nothing. They want you to be more tolerant to transgender and this group of people, but you need to make me better. You got to do something to the heterosexual people in order to make the transgender people more equal. Is that what you guys, you got to take something from this person in order to make this person feel better. Or you got to, I heard a little bit of an analogy last night that was kind of apropos. You got to cut this person in order to heal. You got to heal this person. You got to cut this person in order to heal that person. It's, I don't know. I think they're in no man's land. But they'll never stop fighting if that's their affirmation. And but when you think about it, the Democrats are asking for the same things. The LGBTQ restrooms, the HR 5, that's one big affirmation. They need to, which it's not. It's actually an affirmation of something else, and I'm not going to get into. But you need, like Mark, that interview, was it Rapper that brought it up? Mark Lamont Hill. They need affirmations over the tops of restrooms. They need America to give them to tell them that you are a woman. You can go. You're a transgender person, but you can go into a woman's restroom. If your whole existence is based on affirmations, then who are you? Without the affirmations, who are you? What are you? What do you represent? I just want to give a shout out to everybody in the stream. Thank you guys so much for coming into this segment. Shout out to Cold War Jesus, the Rapper 10,000. Thank you guys for coming in and hitting the like button. If you've done that, I really appreciate it. Shout out to Old Head Deuce. Thank you so much. And I did catch that, the Rapper 10,000 on Nancy's place. She's got huge walls around her place, by the way. You can't get in there. Not without some serious help. And the Rapper says it is proven that BLM gives and receives money from the top Democrat Party members, Act Blue Rings. Yes, they are. It's all going to them. It's all going to them. Okay, so who else? Shout out to Console Fix. Appreciate you guys so much for coming in. Shout out to Delacta Camille, shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you so much, Derek C. Williams, for sharing out the stream. Dare you share? And he did. Thank you so much for that. Looks like I had a comment. Somebody's comment was on hold. Shout out to you guys. All right, Luciano, shout out to you. Shout out to Garrett Reed. Thank you guys so much for coming in. And if I think there's a chance that I will do a moonlight stream this evening, and that's just going to be very casual. Of course, when I say casual, though, I mean I may have one topic, maybe one topic on the casual stream, on the moonlighting streams, and you guys, of course, are welcome to come. I'd love to see you there. Also, I will get the poll out at least by tomorrow, maybe late tonight. I'll get the poll out. Yeah, so the poll will be for an opportunity that I'm able to bring to the channel, and I'd like to know what I'd like to engage you guys on what type of maybe solutions you'd be looking for if you're looking to be more influential, perhaps in your own communities. Of course, this is an election cycle. It's been going on for a while, but don't know if things are coming up. I don't know if your kids attend public schools. I'm sure there's tons of things that there's room for improvement everywhere. And at least at the city and county level, you have access to, having your voice heard, or, at least being more involved in some of the things that are around you, have more of an immediate impact, or able to witness things. I'm not saying it's an answer, it's an end all be all, but at least if you're involved, if you're active, you can, you'll be able to have your input, speak and use your voice. And so, yeah, I'm going to be rounding out this stream in just a couple of minutes. Also, I'd like to take another opportunity to give a shout out to the loyal patrons, as well as you guys, the subscribers. Of course, without you guys, there is no channel. Shout out to Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, the Angel Munez Variety Show, The Definition of Anarchy, Sandy K, Chrysler Imperial H, and Little Miss Goth. Also on the Killer Whale channels, you might check out the Patrick Jane forums and the theology forums. Here you'll find, of course, live streams. Most of these channels go live. Most of these channels have content. And of course, there is, of course, in your live streams, there are opportunities, of course, to network. And maybe you guys will take advantage of that. I really appreciate you guys so much. And yes, so I will be putting out the poll. And if there is an actual stream later this evening, I will put that up. I'll at least try to put it up like maybe 30 minutes before. I know the moonlights are kind of sporadic, but then I will schedule at least one moonlight stream so that there's one on the evening. So I'm not sure if you guys can come in later, or if later is something you can do, because this is a Pacific Standard Time frame that I'm in, and I appreciate you guys wherever you can come around. So I'd like to thank everybody so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to get into, but certainly take a look at the Freedom Index, or to check out your candidates. Some of the newer ones, of course, the newcomers, you'll just have to do your due diligence on their websites, on their individual websites. But you can also go on, you can check out, I think the Heritage Foundation does an index in which shows how these politicians, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, how they have actually voted, and are they voting against what are your values? Maybe you want to explore that. Do you have a core ideology? Do these people measure up? I will say, if the proposition, or if there were a third party to be established, what would you be looking for in a third party? I mean, because right now, we get what we got is what we got, and it's not good. So, but I anticipate that I'm not professing to be a prophet of any kind, but I anticipate that we're going to see more people are going to be exposed. I mean, it's already happened under this presidency, but more people are going to be exposed, I think, before November. And I don't know. I just don't know how I don't know how it's legal to vote against the oath that you take. I just don't know how how is that negotiable? And how does that make, because right now we're not even dealing with the original, we're not even dealing with the original Constitution. So we're already far removed, because I don't think government was ever supposed to be as large as it is. I don't. And yeah, I don't think it was ever meant to be as large as it is. So with that said, once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And like I said, I will keep you guys up to date on what's happening throughout the rest of the day, the rest of the evening, rather. If you're on the East Coast, you guys are already into your afternoon very well. And if there's anything, I'll try to plug it in as soon as I get notice that I'm doing it. So once again, thanks so much for joining me on this segment. And maybe I'll see you guys around later. And perhaps I might even have some people come up. But I'm actually going to change the format of that just a little bit. We'll actually have some questions, some different types of engagement for people coming up. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Thank you so much, Gary L. Youngkeys. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for coming in. Have a great rest of your day. And maybe I'll see you guys around on Moonlighting.